After 19 years of living and working abroad, I feel like my country doesn't even recognize me anymore. I actually feel like I'm not British. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm a 19-year veteran of living and working abroad. I'm 42 years old. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 2 young girls. And today's video is all about the regrets that maybe I feel I have after spending so long living and working abroad. Alright folks, so let's begin with this. Today's video is going to be a little bit shorter, and not too short, but I just want to make 4 main points to this video. Okay, so regrets. Probably number 1 is going to be family. Now, I've covered the topic of family in previous videos, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail like I did before. But what I would say is, one of the things that you're never going to lose when you live and work abroad for so long is the worry of your family, okay? Now, I only have my mom back home, who's 75 years old this year. Actually, last year. She's 76 this year. Okay, so when I left the UK, she was 57 years old. Now, or was she 56, right? She was 56 or 57. Now, that's not old, right? I'm 42 now, so you can think about that. It's not that far away from what the age she was when I left. But at 75, that's quite a big gap. One of the things you notice when you live and work abroad is once you don't get to see your family much, every 3 or 4 years maybe, you notice changes in them quite drastically, as opposed to being at home and seeing them every day. You don't really notice it, right? Because it's not obvious. So that is one of the big things, is worry for me, worry for my mum's health, worrying that she's going to be okay, and because physically I cannot be there when she needs me. Okay, so that is another regret. I cannot physically be there when she needs me. In the same token, they cannot physically be here when I need them. Okay, so that's quite a hard thing to accept. But once you've been living abroad for so long and working, it's something you just accept, right? One of the biggest things for me is obviously as a father. When I left the UK, I was young, I was single, I was just a son. Okay, now I'm still a son, but I'm also a husband and I'm a father. And one of the biggest regrets that I have being away from home for so long is I have 2 children that barely know their grandparents, okay, or grandparent at this point. My oldest daughter is 11 years old. She's been back to the UK 4 times. Now that might not seem a lot, but actually it is quite a lot, because financially it costs a lot of money to do that. Kyla, my youngest, who is 8 years old, has only been home twice. Okay, so they don't really have that strong connection with the grandparent back home. But when they are back home, after the first week or 2, you can see the bond, growing really, really quickly, and it's great to see. But my mom has other grandchildren who she's very close with, and she can see almost every single day. It's not the same with my children. Now, I kind of personally feel a bit guilty for that, and because it was my decision to leave the UK to improve my life. But at the same time, I have children, right, that really should have their grandparent with them. But obviously it's not easy to do that financially. And being the other side of the world, it's really not easy. So that is a big regret for me. If you want to go home more often, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Being single is absolutely no problem, right? You're probably talking about between £500 and £700 for a plane ticket. It's probably increased more now because of Brexit. Excuse me, and depending on where you're going to fly to, because I have to fly to Glasgow. It's not a direct flight. To London it's direct, maybe to Manchester, to Birmingham, but to Glasgow you have to transfer. So it's more money involved. If you want to fly home more often, you're going to spend a lot of money. And as a father of 2 young kids, I need that money for them to support my family. All right, number 2 is your best friends. Now, your best friends, I'm sure everybody has best friends growing up. I am no different. My best buddies were like brothers to me, okay? I spoke about in the first video about how my life and being the black sheep of the family, my best friends pretty much replaced my family connection, okay? So they were family to me growing up. And we were always very, very close. And we used to talk about things like, when we're older and we have kids, we're all going to be in the same room and our kids will be playing together. And it's going to be so cool going to parks with all our kids and watching them bond like we bonded. Well, I've hardly had a chance for that to happen, right? Because my kids are not in the UK. They're not being brought up in the UK. They don't go to British schools. So it's very, very different, okay? And That for me is a regret, because I would love to have the opportunity for my friends' kids and my kids to grow together, to become best friends. I think that would be awesome to see. It would also give me a chance to see my friends more too, right? Which I can't do, obviously, being the other side of the world. Another kind of regret for me with best friends is the fact that your life experience is so different to them back home. You'll notice pretty quickly when you are talking to your friends back home, if you travel, hey, what's up? What's new? Nothing much. Same old stuff, right? SSDD. In the most part, they're just grinding. They're doing 9 to 5. It's Monday to Friday. It's the same things. Go to work, come home, blah, 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 etc. Right? But obviously, in the early stages of your travel, you're going to places. I've been to the Great Wall of China, right? I've been to many countries, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Malaysia. I've been around the world, America, Canada, obviously South Korea, Japan. So I have a lot of experience to talk about. You can talk about the locations you've been to, but it's always about the people, right? The people are what make your experience great, in my opinion, okay, and from my experience. So you will grow apart from your best buddies. Not only can you not see them physically, but also things that you talk about, it's very, very different, right? From the close connection you had before to the differences now, through time and through travel. It's just not the same, okay? So that's kind of regret for me. Number 3 is kind of losing your identity a little bit as far as being British, which I started the video with. I don't really feel British in the most part. I feel like I have no nationality. I don't feel Korean, obviously. This is not my country. But I feel like I don't have a nationality, and there's a reason behind this. But let me first of all cover career, okay? I am building a career here. I have been working in South Korea for a long, long time now, and my expertise is teaching. My degree is in business. My master's degree is in teaching, okay? Specifically teaching linguistics and foreign students and English. That's what I do, conversation skills a lot. Now, I started my teaching career here with kindergarten, and I moved up to public school where I taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade students for 4 years. I moved to another public school for 2 years, and then I did some after school teaching, did some private teaching, and finally I reached the pinnacle, which I see as the pinnacle, which is university teaching here in Korea. It's a very, very good job. It gives me about 4 or 5 months vacation a year, right? So there's no complaints from me. And also you're teaching students who are mature, right? They're young adults. So it's a very big difference there. And you're also helping undergraduate students with the confidence and the motivation to live and work abroad. Exactly what I've done. So for me, it's fantastic and I love it. Now, all of that experience has made me the person that I am today, and it's helped me with my confidence, with my motivation, with my courage. I feel like I'm doing something, making a difference, okay? I'm not just working in an office, or I'm not just working in a supermarket stacking shelves, right? Putting tomato ketchup up. I've done it before, but you don't really feel like you're making a difference, right? So I feel like I've done a lot in my time. Now, if I was to go back to the UK today, and from my experience having job interviews in the UK after traveling, when I've went back sometimes, people who are interviewing you have not traveled. They don't have a clue what it's like to live abroad. They don't have a clue what it's like to leave your home. They cannot connect with you. And when you start talking about that, they have this blank expression on their face. Basically, they don't care, or they don't know what you're talking about, right? Because they can't relate to you. Not only that, your experience abroad is kind of like, it's not treated the same. It's almost like it doesn't even count. So most of my working life has been spent abroad. So for me to come home, it's almost like it's not recognizable, right? And for me, it's kind of like they see it as a waste of time. Your references, which you build up over your career, my references are mostly from foreign people, or even from fellow professors that I work with from America, from New Zealand, from Canada, right? These countries, not Scotland, not Britain. So this also affects me in the long run. So that is a big thing career-wise. Going back to the UK, it's very, very difficult for me now to start a life in the UK and get a job. Now, the system, in my opinion, is not welcoming to those returning from long-term travel. The reason I say that is because regarding NHS and getting treatment, for the first 3 months, as far as I'm aware, maybe even longer, I can't do it. I'm not entitled to it. Also, job seeker allowance. I obviously need to find a job. If I was to go home for the first 3 months, I am not entitled to that either. So that's, for me, it's like, why not, right? I'm British, you know, I've also paid into the system too. I have the British passport, right? I was born there. My parents are British, but I'm not entitled to that because I have lived and worked abroad. Why am I being punished for that, right? So for me, it was frustrating, right? And it was a kind of source of frustration before and anger. I don't feel it anymore, folks, because I've kind of accepted my fate. But these are regrets we're talking about, right? Emergency tax is also a thing that you're going to be hit with if you choose to come back to the UK for the first 3-4 months, which means the money that you make, that obviously you need to support yourself when you're trying to get a place to stay, going back home, is a huge chunk of that is getting taken away because of emergency tax. Now, you will eventually get that back, but it certainly is going to knock you for the first few months. So obviously I need money in my bank to go home. Now, when I'm talking about losing my identity, it's also something that I want to talk about with my wife's visa. She's South Korean, right? She's educated, she's a musician, but the UK don't care about that. They only care about her English level. Her English level is very, very good, so there's no problem that way. The issue that I have with the visa is it's not just a case of applying for the visa, getting it and going home. They need you to have a certain amount of money saved up. I think it's almost in the region of either it's £60,000 in your bank, or maybe now it's going up to like £80,000. It's crazy money, right? When you've got a young family, 2 kids you're trying to support. Who has that kind of money in their bank? If you don't go the money route, you can go the job route, where you have to have employment and you have to, I think, have worked there for 6 months to prove your pay slips, so that when your wife comes, you can show that you can support them and the children as well. So for me, I don't have that lined up. I was going to come home way back in 2014, but I'll tell you a little story here, something that really, really made me feel like I'm not British anymore and they were treating me differently. I was trying to apply for the police force, and I was also trying to apply for the Air Force. Okay, now I'm not a guy that dreamt of being a police officer, and I'm not a guy that dreamt of being in the military. But these are jobs that for me were secure, that could provide safety and security for my family. And these were jobs that I felt like I could work my way up. Okay, so I don't want just any job back in the UK. I want a job where there's potential for promotion, because that's the kind of person I am. I want to keep trying, striving for the best, right? I need to work my way up the system. That's the motivation that I get. Now, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he used to be a police officer. And back in 2014, when I was applying for the police, he actually helped me with the application. So I felt like I had a head start, right? He would tell me all of the things that I need to say or need to put in the application. He would also be a personal reference. He would be a character reference for me. With the Air Force, it was the same kind of deal. I didn't have anyone that I could use as a character reference or someone that worked there, but it was the same long, mundane application. It took a long time, a lot of my time to fill out. It's many, many pages. Now, after going through all that hard work and feeling pretty positive, especially with the Air Force, I got my fitness really, really well. I did the 1.5 mile run in under 10 minutes. I was physically in a very, very good condition, ready to get in to the Air Force. Now, obviously, my goal was to get an administrative job, but you have to pass the, the physical test to get in. After going through that long process, I was informed after about 2 weeks that basically they don't care about anything that I've done. They don't care about my qualifications. They don't care about me. The only thing that they care about is I hadn't lived in the UK for 3 years previous to the application. So Paul, nothing about what you've done, nothing about your personality, nothing about who you know, nothing about your character, nothing about your education. We don't care. If you haven't been living here for 3 years previous, fail. And that's what happened to me. So immediately the door was slammed in my face. So instead of being rewarded for having the courage and the motivation to go abroad and try something new, you're being punished, right? Now, what makes me different to any other British person? We have the same passport. I'm British. I was born there, born and raised in Scotland. What makes me different? The fact that I want to live abroad? Well, to me, that should not be the case, right? we should be treated the same, and it's not the case. So for me, that's a huge regret. Now, regrets, folks, are kind of based on the choices and the decisions you make in life. I don't really think I have regrets. I don't think people should feel that way, because you live, you learn from your mistakes, right? And everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So regrets are things that you make, but as long as you live, you learn, and you grow as a person, it's all good, right? If we never make mistakes, I don't think we can ever reach our potential, because nobody's perfect. So if I'm going to close this video right here, this is what I say. If you're really going to push me, right, Paul, come on, tell me one real regret that you have. I'm going to say one of my biggest regrets was thinking that the UK, my country, would reward me for having the guts, the courage, the motivation, the mindset to go abroad and improve myself. That's my biggest regret, because in reality, the way that I think about the UK, they feel if you're not paying into the system, if you don't pay taxes, you don't care. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.